It's been like 2 or 3 days, I don't remember. I started Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, I believe is how it's pronounced. I don't know, probably like a week ago. And it's about a guy who wakes up in like deep space and he's the only one left and it's his job to save the world. And so it's like super fun and sci-fi. I don't understand what's happening half the time because it's like scientific jargon, which is okay. I'm like, I understand the story, but I'm really enjoying it. This is the author that wrote The Martian and Artemis, which are some of my favorite books. The Martian is obviously like an incredible movie. So I'm bound to really love this, and I think it'll be a really good book to start the year with. I think exactly halfway through. I finished like 120-ish pages today. Some twists have happened. I think they're kind of hinted at in the summary, but yeah, so that's exciting. I have Lore, let me get it, on audio, rented from my library. I haven't started it. I think I probably read like, oh my god, there's so much information. I probably read like the beginning of chapter 1. There's also a prologue. Yeah, I have not gotten far in this at all. It's really thick. The pages are very dense and it's like a 15-hour long audiobook. So this is the Owl Crate edition, which is actually really pretty. So I hope I like it. We are in the middle of like Percy Jackson TV show right now. So this works. I don't remember, but it has to have something to do with Greek gods. And very rare of me to be reading 3 books at once, but I decided I wanted an ebook as well as an audiobook and a physical book. So I rented She Means Well by Quinta Brunson on my Kindle. And I just like, I don't know, Quinta is like the funniest person. She writes and stars in Abbott Elementary. She's like one of the BuzzFeed girls. She's a meme. She's from Philly. So it's just perfect. And I've been wanting to read this for such a long time. And I'm pretty sure it's just like about her life. And I am on chapter 2, I think. Yes, I'm on chapter 2. And again, I'm just like absolutely adoring it. Quinta is like the funniest person on earth and I will follow anything she does. So these are my plans. I don't know. Anything could happen. Okay, so I've been listening to Lore on audio. I'm, I think 68% of the way through. I'm like loving this book so much. I didn't think I was going to, but it's really like a ancient Greek mythology epic, which is so interesting and cool. And it's like this battle across New York about like gods who have been turned mortal as punishment fighting each other with their like followers. So I think right now there's only 2 or 3 gods left and they're trying to figure out if there's like an end because it happens every 7 years. So Lore has like teamed up with Athena, which is so interesting. And I just like, it's a really interesting balance of like this like ancient Greek goddess and this girl who just wants out of this big fight. Yeah, I think they're just trying to figure out if there's a way to end this thing. And there's some like really horrible people. It's way darker than I thought it was gonna be, which I like. Like, it doesn't feel like a young adult. I don't actually know if it is young adult. I think it technically is, but it definitely feels like an adult. Like it has like adult themes of like gore and violence, which I weirdly appreciate. It's not like a bad thing, it's just like it makes it more interesting to read. I'm probably gonna finish it today. I'm on the 4th part 4, so it literally is like a 5-act Greek tragedy, which is so fun. It's a dense book, which is why it looks like a normal length, but it's actually very long. I'm gonna cuddle up and do a puzzle or a 3 or 4 or 5 and finish Lore. So I finished Lore. I gave it 5 stars. It was everything I said it was. Like a really well written, well done YA Greek mythology-esque epic, and it was just really good, and I love the way it ended. Sort of a little bit ambiguously, but like hopeful. It is a standalone, so there's no series, but yeah, I just like really enjoyed my time reading this. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting to give it 5 stars. I read the first bit and I wasn't really sold, but then as it got on, I think it really sold it for me, is that the just like epicness and the real success with the standalone, I just really appreciated. I have been reading Project Hail Mary. I'm like 104 pages away from the end. I'm liking it a lot. I don't think it's 5-star material just because there was a twist that I kind of wasn't really vibing with. It just feels very, very out there, and a lot of his books are really close in the future. Like, it's plausible that all of this can happen. But this just felt a little bit too far out there, like metaphorically and physically. But I'm liking it a lot. As I've gotten used to it, it's kind of been like, okay, I'm vibing with this story now, because it's told in the past and also the future, or present tense and the past, to like tell how this guy came to be alone in space. It's fun to kind of read how these two stories are gonna like converge. I'm more into the past story about how he got into space by himself. It's very sciencey, but that's kind of just the norm with his books. I'm kind of just like skimming a bunch of all of the sciencey bits because I'm sure they're like right and like mathematically correct, but I feel like I don't really need to know that because I'm not a scientist, and like it's just a book, and like you could just tell me that like this is how it works and I'll be like, okay. And I'm not understanding it anyway because it's like physics and chemistry. So as for She Memes Well, I'm reading it on my Kindle, but I think about halfway. I am absolutely loving it. There's also a bunch of like really interesting life lessons that I'm really connecting with, which is fun. She talks about Philly a lot. Obviously, I'm from Philly. We grew up in very different parts of the city, but I still feel like I know of the place in Philly because it's a pretty big city that she's talking about, and I've like been there a bunch, and so I understand it. And yeah, it's just like such an amazing book, and I'm really loving her humor and her stories from like her life. All right, so it's the end of the day after I think I last updated, and I finished both of these books. So first I finished Project Hail Mary, which I gave 4 stars just because of all of like the scientific language. It was like a full, every single climax was just, okay, this is all the science behind what I'm doing, because it's told in first person. And I just found myself unable to get into it. I was like, okay, I don't really need to know all this to get the story. That's why it's a 4-star. I loved the ending. I like didn't see it coming at all. It's like so just like about like not even humanity, just like about connections and like the people you meet, and even though they're not like from the same planet as you, I don't think it's a spoiler, it's literally like sort of in the summary, but I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I loved it. Like I really, really liked it a lot. So it gets a 4-star because other than all the scientific jargon, I absolutely loved it. And then I actually like half hour ago just finished She Memes Well, which again, I just like was so into. Quinta Brunson's such a good writer. Obviously like Abbott Elementary, all her like sketches, etc. And so yeah, this is just like such a good read, and she had so many good points of view about the internet nowadays and how it's different from when she was growing up, and like cultural differences and struggles that she just like talked about really, really eloquently and well. And we both are from Philly, different parts of Philly, I'll admit. But so I kind of felt a slight, small sense of connection. Obviously, this is all her opinion. She mentions that as well. So in this world of where whenever you post anything on social media, it's automatically taken as like the truth. And then so people are free to like comment on it, whether they think it's actually fact or fiction or whatever, but it's really just your opinion. Yeah, so she talks a lot about that, and it just, I felt the juxtaposition between her talking about all that stuff as if it is fact, but it's like her fact. It's not a fact. She doesn't have like a PhD in anything. So it's just like her talking about stuff, giving her opinions on stuff, which I feel like is so interesting in book format, because if it was told through like tweets or internet language, it would be really controversial. So I found that juxtaposition quite interesting. Obviously, Quinta Brunson is like an icon. The new season of Abbott Elementary comes out in like a couple weeks. It might even be this week, so I'm super stoked about that. And I feel like it's not like a good practice to rate people's memoirs because it's like their life and their experience. How can you like give a rating on that? So I just gave it 5 stars because like, yes, obviously. So I do have the audiobook for Miracle Creek, and it's like a 14-hour long audiobook. This has been on my shelf for a really long time. I think it's like the second earliest book on my Goodreads, so that's exciting that I'm finally getting to it. I'm super excited about it. It's like a courtroom mystery / drama thriller about a single mother accused of killing her son. So I'm excited. Courtroom dramas are a really fun thing to watch, so I hope they're a fun thing to read as well. So I finished Miracle Creek. I just finished it on audio. I loved it so much. Basically, there's this submarine where patients get exposed to pure oxygen to help cure themselves. And it's mainly, I think, used for autistic kids. And so their parents go in as well, and they just get exposed to the pure oxygen, and it's supposed to help. And one day it explodes and 2 people die, 1 parent and 1 autistic child. So the book is about the resulting trial surrounding the family who owns the submarine and the woman who allegedly started the fire that led to the explosion. The entire thing is set basically in a courtroom, which I loved, and things are like unraveled and you get introduced to characters as you go along, and they're all really intricate to the plot and like finding out what actually happened. It's so good. I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. And it's Angie Kim's debut novel too, which is wild. She is a mother of one of these children who has been in one of these submarines. She, I think, was or is a lawyer, and she immigrated from Korea, which is where the main family is from in this book. And I just like loved it. It was so captivating. It was so good. It was like interesting, pulling on this thread of like all these people who are involved and like whether or not their stories were correct or whether or not they like remembered stuff wrong or if they were just keeping stuff from the lawyers. But anyway, it was so good. I loved it. And my favorite detail is that, I don't know what you would call them, but like there are 7 of these orange dots on the cover, and each of them obviously represents a person that was in the submarine at the time of the explosion, which I just think is so, I don't know. And it's like nighttime, which is when the explosion took place. I just like, the cover is also just like so pretty and like symbolic. So that's super exciting that I literally like loved it so much. I literally said to myself afterwards, I was like, oh my god, did I just read my favorite book of the year? This is only the 4th book I read. So that's a good sign.
Like you said, a human being, I'm going to make you take that chance. Things have been different for me ever
As for physical books, after I finished Project Hail Mary, I started House of Roots and Ruin by Erin A. Craig. This is the second book in the Sisters of the Salt series. I don't know if it's like a duology or trilogy or what, but the first book is House of Salt and Sorrows, which was a big YA book a couple years ago. This is the second book, which follows one of the sisters. House of Salt and Sorrows is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling. It's like a gothic retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and like the sisters are being like killed off and they're trying to figure out why. And it's just like super dark and spooky and takes place on like cliffs on the edge of like a misty ocean. Incredible. This one follows the youngest sister who can see ghosts, and I'm already loving it. Like, I'm only 50 pages in, but I could not stop myself from reading. And this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. I got it earlier this year, so I've already broken my rule of no more buying books, but I got it in the 50% off all hardcovers sale, and it was all like an extra 3% off because it's like such an old copy, and it's kind of like, it's very loose is the only way I would describe it. Like it feels like, and it's kind of banged up, but it feels like a book you would get at a thrift store. But it's the exclusive edition, so it's really pretty. And so I'm excited for that. And then after, literally just now, after I finished Miracle Creek, I picked up The Beauty and Breaking by Michelle Harper on audio. This is going to be a super quick audiobook, but it's a memoir about a emergency room physician who has had like kind of a traumatic childhood. And I'm just super excited for it. I started it on my Kindle as an ebook over the summer, but I just couldn't get into it. So I'm hopeful that the audiobook is going to make me get into it more and like understand it more. And I'm like, what, like 2 minutes in, and I already am loving it. Like, I love her tone. I love her like style of writing. So okay, so different spot because I felt like switching it up, and I'm like always in that spot over there by my bed, so I wanted to just like do something different. So I have 2 books to update you on. First, I am on page 188 of House of Roots and Ruin. I've been reading it at the coffee shop that I go to, and I'm still really liking it. It's super spooky and super gothic, and I kind of love it. So Verity, the youngest sister who the story follows, is at this estate to paint the portrait of the young person who lives there. His name is Alex. He's in a wheelchair, so everyone's like, oh, wheelchairs, which obviously is like not right. But they're kind of having a thing, but she can still see ghosts. It's just like not right. You know, there's just like a little bit like of a, something's not right here. The mom and the dad are like weird and have weird personalities. There are some weird like peacocks on the ground that like are definitely a little bit creepy. Her sisters, her dead sisters, have shown up to tell her to like leave, like get the fuck out of there. So things are not as they seem. It's spooky, it's atmospheric, and I love it. As for The Beauty and Breaking, I'm 60% of the way through the audiobook. I don't actually know where that lands. I think it's about here. So I have an hour and a half left of the audiobook. I'm definitely gonna finish it today. I'm really enjoying it. Like, this woman is a physician from the DC area, but she worked a lot in Philly hospitals, which I find really interesting. I haven't been in many hospitals, but like hospital stories are always interesting. It's not like Grey's Anatomy level of chaos, but there are some really interesting stories and how they relate to her life and how we're all like, we all experience pain. It's sort of about like how we're all experiencing all these different things, and that doesn't diminish our right to be cared for and to be treated equally for the like conditions or like injuries that we have. And so her perspective from like a physician working in an emergency room and dealing with like all these different types of people from all walks of life is so interesting, and how it kind of like plays into her outlook on life and how it has helped her like personally through her journey of self-healing from traumatic life events. So I'm super enjoying this, and I'm also enjoying House of Roots and Ruin, so it's a good week for reading. So I finished The Beauty and Breaking on audio a couple hours ago. I gave it 5 stars because, again, it's a memoir, so it feels wrong to rate it. But yeah, it was just like a really interesting take on someone who has been in an emergency room and their relationship with life and like mental health and physical health, as well as like once your body is okay enough. Yeah, it was just like such an interesting take, and from like such a unique perspective. I feel like it's just like something I've never read before, where like she's literally worked in an emergency room her whole like professional life, and it's just like such an interesting take on life. It's her take on life after growing up in like an abusive household, and her instincts as an emergency room physician, and what that says about her relationship with life and other people's lives, and how her interacting with all these people makes her feel a certain type of way about some aspect of her life, which I feel like is just like the human condition. But it was told in such a beautiful way, told through her interactions with so many of her patients, and yeah, so I really enjoyed it. So while I'm working on House of Roots and Ruin, I decided to pick up Malibu Rising on audio by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Icon Queen. This is about 4 siblings of like an uber famous rock star in, I believe, the 80s, and they are throwing a party. And the fact is that, you know, from the summary, is that the house is going to burn down by the end of the book, and it's the entire day leading up to this event happening. And it's kind of hinted at that like they're never really gonna be the same, and they're all dealing with their own shit, and it's just really interesting. And I am like so attached to every single one of the siblings, like all 4 of them, but there's something about it that I'm like so captivated by. And I think it's like like what's gonna happen, like we're all in this like tense moment leading up to this big party that's gonna change all of their lives forever. And it goes back and forth between the past, when they were all born, and telling the story of leading up to this day, and told in the present through each hour of the day leading up to the big party and the inevitable house burning down. I'm so into this. I didn't think I was going to be from the beginning, but as it's gone on, I'm absolutely captivated. I love all the characters. It's a very character-driven story, and I'm itching to know like what happens towards the end. I'm assuming there's gonna be a twist, because that's what Taylor Jenkins Reid is like known for. So I'm gonna keep reading. Decided that along with Malibu Rising, which I only have an hour and a half left of on the audiobook, I want to finish House of Roots and Ruin today. It's almost 4, so it's definitely doable. I am loving it. We're kind of in like the heat of the mystery, like things are happening. There's a little bit sort of a love triangle where it's like this girl is like Verity, the main character, is like, oh, like I've never kissed anyone before, so I'm like, I don't know how it's supposed to feel. And so like she like is like kissing and like in love, sort of, well, in like with the main guy, but she's like, oh, but it doesn't feel like I thought kissing would feel. So at first I was like, oh, she's gay, but then there's another guy. And so I'm like, okay, well, but I'm really, really liking it. I can definitely see myself finishing this today, unless like something really, really wild happens or I just get like not in the mood anymore. But I'm like 130 pages out, which is so doable, so we'll see. Okay, so I just finished House of Roots and Ruin. I really, really, really loved it. It's been, I feel like such a minute, like such a while since I finished like 300-ish pages in one sitting, so, but the mystery of it all just like captivated me, and it's gonna be a 4-star because there were certain things, like Verity, the main character, was coming to conclusions that just weren't plausible sometimes. Like I was coming up with a completely different conclusion and that actually turned out to be the thing that it was, or like more plausible than what she was coming up with in her head. It just felt very strange, some of the thoughts she was having, like, oh, like this person did this, but I was like, but that doesn't make any sense. So that's the only reason it was not a 5-star. And some things were kind of just like, oh, okay. Like it wasn't like, oh my god. It was just kind of like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like it was a twist, but it wasn't like a super like insane dramatic twist, because it was absolutely plausible. And yeah, so I'm super happy I finished this. Technically another series caught up with, so good for me. And I'm gonna go finish Malibu Rising right now. So I'm tired and I just finished like 5 puzzles on my phone in a row, and I finished Malibu Rising. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it so much. I love that like you know what's gonna happen at the end, so there's that like suspense of like how the fire is gonna be started and like if anyone's gonna die, like all that kind of stuff. The symbolism of the fire burning this house down that just held this insane party, and the kids all coming together and like talking through their life, and like twists happen, and it's just like stuff that like you wouldn't really expect, like emotional stuff. They're not like super big twists, but it's like super emotional stuff that you're like, oh my god, like this is all happening now, and there's gonna be this fire. So there's that kind of like, oh, this has an end, like we know what the end of this book is, but like how they get there is so interesting, and like they're literally just like reflecting on like their entire lives, and it's so good. I like don't know what else to say. I just loved it so much. And now I want to read Carrie Soto is Back, which is Taylor Jenkins Reid's next book, I think, after this one. So, which is like, it came out like a year ago, I think, so I want to read it, but I'm doing all the books that are already on my shelves. And I didn't realize until now that I literally read 7 books in this video, which is so many. It's been like the entire month of January, basically. It is January 31st right now. So I had a great time. I read 3 or 2 physical books and then 1 Kindle ebook, which I mean I kind of count as a physical book because it's actually physically reading rather than just listening. Yeah, I'm excited, and I totally can read all the books that I have not read that are on my shelves by like honestly like the middle of the year. I don't even think it's gonna take me until the end of the year, which I'm so excited about, and I cannot wait. I'm gonna try and finish all the standalones first before I start any series, and no promises, and that just helps me just like get them all out of the way, and then I can like focus on all these series that I'm kind of excited about. Bye!